force, Luke.
Sometimes truth isn't good enough.
I feel the need for speed.
Hi, I'm Chucky,
Cause it's their time. Their time. Up there. Down here, it's our time. It's our time down here.
Alrighty, welcome back to FrostCast episode 18. And because I've been ready for this my whole life, and Mama said that winners always want the ball, and you will always remember the night that everybody in Winter Wolf's Den talked about their favorite football movies, and I just quoted all four of them in a little bit of a giveaway. Let's get King Z in here, and he can judge that intro. Scale of 1 to 5. Solid 3, right?
You did all right. You did all right.
2.5. We rate most crappy episodes 2.5. I got a 2.5. I'll take a 2.5. Whatever. I thought of that last minute.
You did a fumble on the 1 yard line.
Little bit. I got it. Listen, I got it all the way down there. Someone else gonna have to punch it through. This is where you're gonna have to come up big and lead the discussion on a couple of these movies that, believe it or not, were my first watch. As you were shocked to find out yesterday when I revealed that. I hadn't seen 2 of these. One of them obviously affected you a little bit more than the other. When I was like, I haven't seen it yet, dude. I know it's 20 years overdue, but I'm looking forward to this topic. I think this was a great last minute topic pick on your part to kind of round out our November FrostCasts. So I'm looking forward to this. I think our movie discussion shows have been a lot of fun lately when we've done, I think we've done a few out of our last like 5 episodes. We've done like 3 of them.
Yeah.
With like the movies of show talks. I think they're pretty cool. So we're going to keep to our time frame though. I've already agreed to this. It's ironclad, everybody. I signed on the dotted line. We're not going to go big over time. No pun intended. You see what I did there? Got all kinds of sports puns lined up for you. Because the show is about an hour. We whittled down our list of like 10 great all-time banger of Thanksgiving football movies, like movies you watch about football during the Thanksgiving season. You know, we've narrowed it down to 4. We're going to try and divide them up, but I know one of them is running long. 2 of them are probably going to run long. It's just how it is. So we are going to try and order them in a way that gives the more thematic, serious 2 of the bunch of 4 a little bit more runtime, I think, just to really get into them because they're both very, very well done. Yeah. I'll kick this off ahead before we even get started and say the both of the movies that are going to run a little bit longer are both inspired by true events. They've been heavily modified for the screen, and I'm guessing neither of us care because they're still banger movies that have an uplifting and positive message. And if you can't just take that because it's not 100% like fact that happened in real life, you're on the wrong channel. Like, go away. We're here for the storytelling. So yeah, I think outside of just saying happy Thanksgiving to folks, because obviously we're not on for tomorrow. Thank you to everybody serving that can't come home. Thank you to the doctors, nurses, first responders, all those folks that are going to be on call all day tomorrow. I hope your company catered. I know in our last year of Bidenomics, that's probably not the case. But if you catch a break, be kind to each other. Be kind to retail folks too. They ain't here to put up with your bullshit. They're just doing a job. But all right, dude, big movie. We're opening with the banger. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
This is yours. This is your show now. At this point, this is your episode to run us through the first movie, which is, go for it.
Well, I do want to thank everyone for being here and joining us. It is Thanksgiving season, which brings us the big 4 Fs. We're talking about family, friends, food, and football. It's no better season than Thanksgiving season. But the first movie you have to watch when you're watching football, and the first movie that comes to mind, especially in my head, is this one. And this is Remember the Titans. This movie, if you're not moved, have a significant emotional experience during this movie, you are missing out on one of the great storytelling of based on true events, stories of our time. Denzel, top of his game. And you have a couple bigger actors who show up later in the movie that have bigger careers later on. One, Mr. Ryan Gosling is in this movie as a teenager. You have, what's the big guy's name?
He's not big anymore.
No, he's not big anymore. That's what I was talking about.
Jacked.
Yeah,
he's jacked.
His body.
Can't remember his name, but he played Lastic in the movie. So, yeah,
played Lastic in the movie, and then he was in My Name Is Earl as Earl's brother.
Yeah, in those crappy Butterfly Effect movies. He's been on all kinds of like sitcom. I think he was on Boy Meets World as one of the goons in high school. He's that type of guy. Don't forget Donald Faison from Scrubs playing Turk. Also, early appearance in here. I always forget his name. The guy that played the coach that kind of got bumped down to the assistant. He's no schlub either.
Coach
Yost. Yep. He's had a heck of a career too.
That's
character actor.
Will Patton.
Will Patton. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
He actually played the bad guy in the Punisher movies with
John Travolta and
John Travolta. Yep.
That's right. No, great character. He was in Armageddon. He was the one that wanted to impress his son and left him a little shuttle before the mission. He goes back. That's what I'm saying. And this is right around that time too. This is like 20 odd years old. This came out, I think, in what, 2000, 99, something like that. It was like the turn of the century.
Released 2000. It was released in 2000.
And like we were talking offline yesterday, we were just kind of like getting into it a little bit about older movies. You can tell from get-go, this is a superior film. Like no ifs, ands, or buts about it, man. Like the quality of it is shot in a way that there's no wasted motion. Every shot counts for something. Every scene, every little bit of dialogue counts for something. Like we analyzed it a little bit and we were talking about we might have only trimmed down like one thing out of the entire 2-hour runtime. And like we were talking trimming a matter of seconds. Not even like, oh, we didn't need that scene. It could have been cutting room floor. Nobody needed that. It was like, oh, it went on a little too long.
No, I don't think there's any in this movie. Like there's no wasted time. Everything that happened in the movie had a purpose of telling the story. Now, of course,
literally pushed it forward.
It's based on true events, so not everything is done completely accurate. Like certain conversations, we don't know what they actually said.
Of course.
So some things were moved around and changed, but I mean, it goes pretty quickly. Started off with like a spring practice going on, them talking about integrating the schools, and then you go right into like the new coach being hired. Now he was hired by the school board, and then the school board had a flip and made him the new head coach over Coach Yost, who's been there for years. And then you go right into camp, and then you have the whole camp sequence. So it's like that is like one of the biggest parts of the movie is the camp. The camp is like priceless.
It's tone setting. It really is. That's one of the other points we were kind of checking off our list, is that in the not wasting any time and getting through like the very brief but effective setup, everything we were talking about Back to the Future last week. This is exactly like that. This movie gets through its roadmap of the stuff it needs to set its giant story up in brutally efficient time that never leaves you wanting and never overstays its welcome. Like that pivotal scene where Bertier and Julius had that conversation after the practice, where Bertier is like, listen, dude, you're all out for yourself. You're not blocking for these guys. You got to put yourself on the line. We're never going to win if you can't do that. And then Julius turns around and hits him with what about you? Like, you go tell them that they need to do their jobs. You be the leader. Like, the attitude comes from leadership, captain. And they have that moment. And like that turning point scene legit is at that 20, I'm a big fan of that. You know it, that 20-25% road mark. And then everything after that jumps right into the team slowly comes together and integrates in more ways than one. They get their social shit together to the point where when the season starts and they get dumped back out of camp and into the world in 1971, Virginia, recently integrated, height of civil rights, race riots, everything like that. I was thinking about this. We dumped so much crap on kids back then for them to actually be like role models and leaders and expect them to do what most of the grown-ups couldn't do. And they had to deal with that. They had to suffer with the whole, we did all that stuff at camp, but we get back here and none of that shit seems to matter. Like, so what if we overcome? The world don't want us to be together.
Yeah, and that goes right into Coach Boone's first speech before the first game. He's like, we're playing this team. They're all white, like every other team in our district. They don't have to deal with race. We do. So let's make sure everything that we did at camp means something.
Yep. And we saw that because those guys, obviously in different places after they had gone through camp together, were more than willing to stick up for each other and have their backs, especially when the first fight broke out in the high school when a couple of just your typical dickhead rednecks were busting
Petey.
What was Petey? I was going to say it's not Rev. Rev was the quarterback. Petey. They were the Turks. They were busting Turks' balls. Yeah. And I'm like, no, everybody kind of came to his defense. And then it was, of course, the two captains that separated the various mobs and booted them out of the hallway. And but again, these are two kids. These are like high school juniors, seniors, whatever they were. And like after they ditched the crowd out, they're looking at each other like, what the fuck are we supposed to do, man? Like the
Yeah.
grown-ups are useless here. We're boned. You
And
know, I
this-
felt bad. I felt bad for him. Like I felt the heaviness that they were going through.
Yeah, and this went after I think the second game. This is when it happened, and like you had
Yeah.
that first game win, and they went out on the town. And they went to that one restaurant, and
Oh, yeah,
he
yeah.
was like, "I think we're all full here, boys." And he's
There's
like, "What do
plenty
you
of
mean?"
tables.
Yeah, and like him actually seeing what
Yeah.
the other half of his team was going through during that
Yeah.
time, and like they were all mad that like we told you like it's
Yeah.
like this. He's like, if you're going to do something like that, you got to be able to back it up.
Right.
And like
Yeah,
then
no,
they
that's
split
great
their
scene.
separate ways in that one because you know they were still having their own like being back in the world. It's kind of hard to keep that connection that they had that they grew at camp. So
Oh, for certain, especially when they were bussing the black kids in at the beginning. I remember news footage of that we that you and I saw at high school, obviously junior high, of what that looked like when governors were bussing in other kids into those schools as they did the integration thing. And I'm like, there were grown-ups screaming at children, threatening to kill them. Okay, maybe we need to think about that. Maybe that wasn't the play. Maybe that wasn't quite the play to make. And I thought that, and we were talking about characterization. Let's wrap our we can go as long as you want to remember the Titans. I'm down. But anyway, we were talking about big characterization in this movie. Every character, I mean, even Yost's daughter have like a mini character where like she's all into the football, and then she has to get over it and learn to like identify with Boone's daughter, who was more of the girly girl playing with dolls, and they had to sort their shit out for like the last game and support each other. But I mean, with the racism of the white adults in this movie, it filters down and condenses very nicely into Bertier's girlfriend, where she's like, yeah, you're running in one direction, and I can't go with you. She didn't shake Julius's hand, when they first met. And I thought that they microscoped it right down into Kate Bosworth's character very effectively. So then we didn't have to have a bunch of over the top stereotypes running around. There were still plenty of them, like Ryan Gosling's father, who was like, you can't take my coach out. And then the other coach was like, I'm not giving game tape to a monkey and all that other terrible crap.
Yeah.
But they all didn't need to be cartoon characters about it. They got their one awful, I'm a terrible person jab. And then that was it. I thought it just exemplified more in her because she was closest to one of our main characters.
Yeah, and then you saw her growth. Like she was like, you have your priorities all mixed up, and then they're asking him to come to the hill with them and celebrate after the first win. And he's like, no, why don't you come down here and part with us? They just like you to be here with us. And they're like, she's like, you got your priorities all mixed up. And then later, after they win against Groton, she's like, maybe I'm the one who had my priorities mixed up. She's like, I might not get there as fast as you like, but I'm trying.
And dude, that was the best part of that exchange is the I'm trying. That's all really I want. I just want people to try, But we talk characterization all day long. Yost goes through some stuff where he obviously has to put his pride aside to do the right thing and still have the job for his family. He does the right thing by his special teams coach and brings him along. He gets shanked in the back for that in the diner scene later, because that guy obviously wasn't ready and wasn't open-minded to have any meaningful conversation. Even Boone, and that was the best part, is they win out the game. They win out the last game because the last character to execute on the growth was Boone, who finally acknowledged that he didn't know everything he needed to know and that he could accept outside help. So when Yost told him, listen, dude, he sees you coming, you got to change some shit up. And of course, Boone, because he is a good coach, had something ready to go, but he needed to be open-minded to that feedback from his defensive coordinator.
And it started with his defensive coordinator in the
Yeah.
locker room. He's like, I hope y'all learned as much from me as I have from you. And he's like, Herman, he's killing me out there. I need your help.
Yep. And even better than that, it wasn't just like they just jumped right into Yost getting it. He did the thing that that Boone told him you can't do. Like, you can't undercut me. You can't coddle these kids. So Yost came down hard on Petey at one point. Hard, benched him.
Yeah,
put
from
Ryan
when he walked
Gosling's
away.
character back in. Right. He was like, okay. So, and then, he's like, okay, put me back in. And he's like, yeah, no, go support your team and we'll see how you do next year.
Yeah,
so then Faison has to go on.
Cedar.
Right. And then he's like, so he has this little arc where he did the right thing. They didn't show a lot of it, but he was on the sideline doing his thing, clapping him up. That way when Ryan Gosling's like, hey, these guys are torching me, put Petey in. and he put it on Ryan Gosling's character to go give him the job back. But he had to change too. He had to come down hard on that kid, and then he put it all on the line, flexing on the ref. That was badass.
Oh yeah, in the regional game,
chills.
Because there was it was like we got this set for you, and when it's over, you'll be in the Hall of Fame. And then he was seeing what was happening, and you heard Boone was like, "Don't do this to the boys," and he was like,
"Are you blind?"
Yeah, and he came out there to him. He's like, "I know what you're doing." He's like, "I'll go to the papers," which goes to the greatest speech ever. When he comes back, he's like, "Defense, on me,
dude." Yep, lay it out there. You quote it, do it.
And he was like, Petey, don't go to the strong side. This is where Petey walks away. And he's like, they're tall and holding on me every time. He's like, I didn't ask for excuses. I need you to do your job. And that's when Petey walks away. He's like, let him go. Ryan, you're in. And then he was like, they don't gain another yard. If they cross the line of scrimmage, I'm taking all of you out. We're going to make them remember the night they played the Titans.
Dude, it was badass, dude. And again, I'm a sucker for all that shit in sports movies. I love listening to Mick talk and Rocky. That I love Michael Caine talking and Angels in the Outfield. I don't care. That stuff works for me. It always will. And when they've earned, and again, we're talking about this all the time. When you earn the cheese or when you earn the right to make a mistake, I just sign the check. Like that's, and I'm like, okay, here you go. I enjoyed it. But overall, dude, great movie. Sorry I missed it 25 years ago. Just never got around to it. I'll say this though. This is going to be a nuclear hot take for me because I know people dig it. I thought the dance was kind of dumb. I get what it was going for. I get it's probably based in the history somewhere. I thought that was a little bit more cheese than I could support, but I still gave it to him. I still
the warm up.
The warm up. I'm like, okay, all right. It was in all your trailers, 30 years ago, whatever. But I'm like, okay, all right, you got it. Because I liked it better when they're singing on the bus together. Like when they're singing all that, when they're singing the old school music, the old school Motown stuff, I'm like, okay, that works. Like I'm with that. But the warm up, I'm like, all right, whatever. But what a great movie. And it just goes to show, and I say this all the time, they don't make movies anymore like this.
No.
And there's a reason. They don't want you to feel a certain way about it. They don't want you to feel like there's any positivity or any hope or that there's a chance things can get better. There's a reason you can't laugh at movies either. It's the same thing. It's a reason you can't get a comedy out there anymore. Successful anyway.
Yeah, I think this movie captured the time frame that it was set in perfectly. I think it was the perfect casting from top to bottom, from players to coaches to even background. I think it was a very well done movie. It's a top football movie in my book.
Easy peasy.
All right, so I think we're moving on to yours now. You're number one.
Yep. And I like to think that this is just, 1 and 1A to me, honestly. Like I'd put it right up there with it. Like Rudy is the football movie that I could quote ad infinitum. I love this. I love Sean Astin in the role. I think he's brilliant in this film. We get it's the quintessential, like it's Rocky. It's Rocky, but playing football basically. And instead of, being like a 2-bit, leg breaker for a mid-level mob guy, he's just like a kid from like, the suburbs that works in a tannery or wherever it was, whatever factory it was.
The third oldest of 14 kids.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I know that Irish Catholic family, you know what I mean? I have some of them in my family. I get that. I get that upbringing, but it's just a kid that always wanted to play at Notre Dame. And everybody told him, you're not big enough. You can't do this. They told him at one point, you're not even smart enough to go to junior college and get the grades to be even considered, to transfer. But he goes through, he never quit. Like he literally never quits. Even when he gets destroyed in that one practice and doesn't get up and they pull him to his feet, he doesn't quit. So there's just a lot in this movie the same way. And I think that when you go back and watch it, you realize a lot of the same stuff that I just noticed about Remember the Titans. It's not just Sean Astin in this movie. Like Jon Favreau is in this movie.
Yeah.
Actors like Ned Beatty and Charles Dutton are in this movie. You know what I mean? Like there's some players in this movie that absolutely like lend the inspired by true events. Some people argue whether or not he was carried off the field. I was there, it happened. I was there, it didn't happen. Joe Montana was on that team as a freshman and says it happened or it didn't happen. I don't remember that angle of the story too well.
He said they did it more of as a joking type
as a joke.
thing.
Yeah, don't care. It translated better into the victory at the end of the movie. This is that. Do we got a release year for this for me? It's got to be early 90s, mid 90s, right? 94,
93.
93, right? So this movie has that same trailer music that like movies like Saving Private Ryan would use. It's very heavy on the sweeping, trumpety kind of like trailer music that we just got back then before everything was all like, synth and what do the kids call it? The EDMs, you know what I mean? Like before every trailer movie was that. It's when trailer movie guy actually had a job in a world where, you know what I mean? He wasn't in that trailer, but in a world where Rudy goes to Notre Dame. Like that. No, it wasn't quite that. But it was a lot of that same stuff. It was just the one guy's story. So the whole movie's about him and the 57 obstacles he's got to get through and how literally nobody believes he can do it. And I think that's an inspiring story, whether or not it's 100% accurate or 50% embellished or not.
Yeah, they said the major embellishments was them chanting his name. They said that didn't happen. And then the one of the most heart-wrenching moments in the whole movie is when everyone comes in and puts their jerseys on. Yeah. And he's like, "You're the team captain, act like it." He goes, "I think I am." Coach. Yep. They said that never happened.
I do, but I don't care. I'm writing the check because by the time you get that, because that's the midpoint of the film. Like that's legitimately, I think, like the midpoint. Like
no, that's the end.
With the jersey bit?
Yeah, didn't
he need the jersey to get on the practice squad?
No, he needed the jersey to be dressed for them for the final game of his senior season.
That's right.
Yeah, and according to the coach, he was always on the final roster. To dress.
Either which way, I'm signing for the cheese. It's like when Peter Jackson took like Lord of the Rings and knew he had to move some shit around and like condense some characters. It works for the visual of the medium. You know what I mean? It's a movie. They needed some of that stuff, so that made for a great scene. We were just talking about this guy there, Vince Vaughn, also in the movie as the quarterback that was like the typical underachiever. Because at one point Rudy lays a hit on him, and the coach pulls Vince Vaughn's character aside. And Vince Vaughn complains, Rudiger's out there playing like it's the goddamn Super Bowl. And the coach yells at him, "That's your damn problem. You've been here 4 fucking years," whatever he says, and you never got it, or whatever he says like that. Like that's Rudy in a nutshell.
Yeah, he says, "You summarize your whole career in that one sentence."
In that one sorry sentence. That's right. But let me ask you this about Rudy's character, because we'll work a little writing into this, right? Rudy goes through some obstacles. He's got a journey. But I argue he doesn't have a positive character arc. He's on a flat arc because he doesn't change much because he's always running through obstacles from the beginning. Right. So you'd agree then?
Yeah, you'd see more of the people around him changing than him.
Like his dad and his older brother.
And John Favreau's character, Debo, he changed. Like True. He was shy to talk. He was shy talking to girls, and then he ends up like with a girl, and like I believe they were married by that last game when he went off to law school. Down in Miami, his father changed, his brother changing, the guy they hired to work at the factory, which I think is his other brother. He had so many brothers to work at the factory. Finally acknowledged him that he's playing, and he made it happen. Yep. So his art is pretty flat, where it's everyone around him changing, and it's pretty much just I would say it's more of a travel log than a hero's type journey.
I just meant in terms that there were obstacles that needed to be overcome. You know what I mean? He's not getting the widget and then returning home changed. No. I mean, that part of the journey doesn't apply. You're right. It is more like I went from here to here to here. But I like that he positively changed so many people around him. And when we're talking about obstacles, we're not just talking about he didn't get the grades to get on the team. Like his best friend got exploded in the mill accident. Yeah. His longtime girlfriend ended up with one of his brothers and buying the house that like she wanted her and Rudy to buy early on. Mm-hmm. His dad flat out told him that that's not for you, like meaning Notre Dame. Like there's a lot of crap this dude went through. And when I say flat arc, guys, for those of you that don't, write or don't do that kind of creative work, flat arc doesn't mean like bad and nothing happens. It just means that the character's constant. Like characters like James Bond have flat arcs. They are who they are. They learn little things to overcome a small problem in the movie and defeat the bad guy, but they inherently stay the same.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. He's still James Bond at the end, the good James Bond anyway, not the Daniel Craig crap.
Oh, some of the Daniel Craig ones are good.
Casino Royale and Skyfall sometimes if I'm in a good mood. Most of the rest of those movies blow. Don't get me started on Quantum of Silence. It's awful. Hate that. Hate it. But anyway, we're talking Rudy though. the first scene in Rudy, if you remember, it's his last high school practice, and all the seniors are lining up to throw like a last hit on the coaching staff. And Rudy lines up and he hits the coach, and the coach basically gives him the pat on the head and says, "We're going to miss you around here." So he means something to everybody already. And then we get to see how he changes people as he goes on his journey. That's why I love one of my favorite scenes in that movie is the end of the game when Rudy stays in, and then on top of staying in, he lays the tackle down, sacks the quarterback, gets the running back. I think he gets the QB. And John Favreau's character's in the stand. He's like, "Who's the wild man now, huh?" And he's basically screaming on the verge of tears. Like, that's awesome. Like, that's good shit. You know, so many good scenes. Talk about great scenes. Charles Dutton in this. Charles S. Dutton.
Yes.
In this movie. Coach. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I love everything about that character in this movie, dude. Everything about him.
Yeah, I mean, you have... Yeah, he even changed his life. Like he said, he'd never watched a game from the stands. He was a bench player. He quit, and then he regretted it every day. And that was the big reveal at the end there, because Rudy was going to quit because he said he didn't see his name on the final dress roster, and he was like he quits. And like he had the one character who was also like on the practice squad with him, who was like, "Everything you stood for means nothing now."
Yep.
And as he's walking away, and then he had that talk with him, and then he shows up to practice late, doesn't have to run a mile.
Yep. I like when Dutton shows up to that game at the end and he's watching, and then as Rudy gets into the game and lays the tackle down, he gets the clap and the fist bump. Then he just turns and kind of pieces out because he knows he's seen what he needed to see. Very Rocky Balboa-esque, 30 years ahead of Rocky Balboa.
Yeah.
I like that scene. And you know, the other great, there's that one line of dialogue. It's trailer worthy. I get it. It probably never happened. I don't care. It's in my tagline right there. They're lined up in the tunnel, and the quarterback grabs Rudy by the mask and is like, "Are you ready for this, champ?" And Rudy just says, "I've been ready for this my whole life." And you're like, "Yeah, you have. Yep. We're good."
And he's like, "Then take us out."
Yep. Then take us out. And he goes out there and he's bewildered, but he runs full steam out the damn tunnel. It's pretty great. Dude, football movies are awesome, dude. They really are.
They really are. There's so many other good ones too that we could have talked about. Like some honorable mentions is like The Best of Times, The Longest Yard, both the Adam Sandler and the Burt Reynolds one.
The Program, the School Ties that we were just talking about that we didn't even remember until a friend of mine chimed in and was like, "Hey, you guys doing School Ties?" I'm like, "Fuck, forgot." And we could have. That would have been a really easy one to throw.
Do you remember the scene that was cut from the movie The Program because of some football players actually tried it?
Laying down in the highway.
Yep, on the yellow line.
Yep. People were dumb in the 90s. I'll admit it. People were dumb.
I mean,
beginning of dumb shit.
You have to think about how many people tried the Fast and Furious driving after the first one and got in car accidents and wrecked so many cars.
Dude, literally retards going out of the fucking parking lot at the movie theaters wrecking cars the night of Fast and Furious debut in 2000. It was a different time. But everybody, I tell you what, everybody wasn't there with the so you could get away with some shit. You know what I mean? You get away with some stuff.
Yeah,
it was all right.
I'm glad I had my adolescence before cameras because we did some stupid stuff.
Facts. I'm like, we don't need to talk. We get demonetized ahead of getting monetized. We don't want that.
I remember riding my bike 5.3 miles.
Yes,
and then we would hop on the bikes again, ride another 4 miles, shovel snow off the basketball court, and then play half court basketball
for like after hours. Dark, no lights. Yeah, no lights.
And then by the end of the game, we're down to tank tops and shorts because we're just so warm from playing basketball all day.
In February.
Yeah. And then we all had to ride our bikes back home.
And admittedly, getting back to base, you had like you said, you had a much longer ride.
Yes, much longer ride.
And that's just the stuff that couldn't have gotten us really killed. Anything that happened on the pond, on the ice, could have gotten us killed.
Yeah,
plenty of stuff like that. But yeah, dude, Rudy. It's a friend of mine that you know from high school back in the day too. He says, Rudy's the kind of movie you don't ever go looking for. It finds you when you need it. And that resonated with me in a big way because I swear, when I really started to get, because you get older and you start to understand things a little bit better.
Yeah.
I didn't get Rudy when I was 15. I didn't get Rudy when I was 25. I got Rudy when I was like 30. And I really got it when I was 30 and had some issues. Excuse me.
Which was like the
Had
age
some-
of Rudy when he finally got into Notre
Same.
Dame.
Just about. But yeah, had some issues getting into like the medically related healthcare program I wanted to be in. Had some admission issues, we'll say. And dude, there's Rudy in Thanksgiving, dude, in November, because that's the only time TNT and TBS will put it on. You know, it's like the Wizard of Oz. Like it's just, and that's how this whole thing started. This topic started because we were talking about movies that we were going to watch in and around November. And I think the first one you said was like, oh, like Wizard of Oz. I'm like, yeah, that. And then we're like, but there's not like 10 of those. We need like a whole, we need to be able to, you know, cluster some stuff up. So there we are. But yeah, Rudy's easy number 2. We're going to switch gears here now, guys, as we get into the other two. These are less dramatic and more comedic, because I feel like we needed to balance those things out. But once again, we really, I don't think we ended up having to like scrape for like obscure movies that like people be like, oh yeah, I vaguely remember that 1991 like, everybody remembers Keanu Reeves and everybody remembers the Titans. But I think most people, if you're of a certain age and watch sports movies, you probably remember Keanu Reeves and The Replacements. This is King Z's pick.
Oh yes, this was my second pick because I went and saw this when it came out in theaters right before the Super Bowl. Actually, I went and saw the two football movies that came out that year right before the Super Bowl, and it was The Replacements and Any Given Sunday. And this was a much better football movie to watch before the Super Bowl than Any Given Sunday.
Dude, I completely forgot about Any Given. That was with Al Pacino and
LL Cool J.
Cool J.
And who was what's Jamie Foxx?
Jamie Foxx. That's okay.
Bill
Boy Scout on here.
Bill Bellamy.
Damn it, we could have had The Last Boy Scout with Bruce Willis and one of the Wayans brothers.
Technically, that's a football movie. Yeah,
it is. The dude's a football player.
Yeah,
the whole thing starts with the dude getting shot. Yeah, it was
a football player.
That counts. Die Hard's a Christmas movie. That counts in that exact same mechanism.
Hey, and it's once again, it's Bruce Willis.
Saying, there we are. So, dude, and again, to your shock and dismay, when you picked The Replacements and like put it up on like up high on your list, I was like, I don't think I've seen that. I knew what it was. Because I think everybody knows the image of Keanu Reeves in the red. It's like it's a common image that's on like the banners and thumbnails for this movie on like IMDb in the red jersey, like running towards the camera, like solo by himself. But I'm like, is that a comedy? Is that a replay? Like, well, what's the deal? I'm like, okay, it's got Gene Hackman. How bad could it be? Turns out, not bad at all. Pretty damn good.
Yeah. So the premise of the movie is that the NFLPA goes on strike for pay raises, which was very common back in the 80s. I think it's happened twice. One was a strike and the other one was a lockout that we've seen in our lifetime. So what this is that the NFL owners went and got replacement players to finish the season. There was like 4 games left in the season before the playoffs. So they were going to finish the season with replacement players or whoever crossed the picket line to come and play for their team. So Gene Hackman is hired as the coach for I think it's the Washington Sentinels based in Washington, D.C., and he said he has a list of players he's kept his eye on, and these are the people they're bringing in. And like you have John Favreau in this as a crazy. He's a SWAT officer who's going to play linebacker. You got Keanu Reeves as quarterback. You got Orlando
Bloom.
It is Bloom? No, it's not Orlando Bloom. Orlando Jones. That's right. I'm like, it's not Orlando Bloom.
They look alike, dude. It's easy to get them mixed up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he could.
They don't look alike.
Yeah. You also have Fazone Love in this. He's one of the guards with. You got the sumo guy Ace Yokamine. Yeah. To be there, so. He puts a team together of pretty much people who played football at one point in their time, but never really could make it as a professional player.
Washed out one way or the other, right?
Yeah, like Shane Falco played for, he was good in college, but he got rocked in his last game.
Rocked in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, Sugar Bowl. That was
and everybody reminds him, dude. It comes up like 5 times. Every new character he meets is like, too bad what happened in the bowl.
He's like, didn't anyone have anything better to do that day?
Right? Yeah, that's one of the best lines. Listen, I got like 3 or 4 decent, like really good chuckles out of this. That was one of them. Like that was pretty solid. Keanu just times it. It's a pretty good zing.
And then what's his name? The pretty much the antagonist to him, Brett Cullen, who always plays this type of character.
Smarmy a-hole.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. That's
and he's really good at it. Like I've never ever seen him play like a decent guy. He's always this type of character.
Right,
so
right. You need that. You need those guys.
But he's like the starting quarterback that is on strike. Yeah, the professional.
Right, he's a pro. Mm-hmm. And it's like this movie reminded me when I saw it, because I shut my brain off and watched it, right? Because that's what I'm doing for movies now. The minute I detect anything, programming agenda wise, that's when I reactivate a little bit. But you know what? I watched 4 movies this week, and all 4 of them had none of that. So I'm like, it's good to go back in time, 15, 20 years to these movies, because they can just tell the damn story. It's just a story. It's a simple story of these like has-beens and never wases.
Yeah.
To get that shot to come back and reclaim. And that's Gene Hackman's coach speech in this. For you, there is no tomorrow. So whatever in context, whatever we do here means like you were pro football players. You were paid to play the game. You can always say that now. And that's that becomes their rallying cry. But it's just a simple story. It's basically the Water Boy. Like near the end, it really is the Water Boy. You know what I mean? Like, remember that time Shane Falco came back at halftime and the Not Mud Dogs won the Bourbon Bowl? It's like, it's literally that.
Yeah.
Like, Adam Sandler should probably call his legal guys and apologize for something. It's only like 10 years apart.
But one of the funniest scenes was actually the first game they played together, like their first professional game. And they hand the ball off, they went to the wrong side, they get hit, and it's bad. And then they're like, man, I'm not feeling so good. Because everyone starts talking in the huddles, and how about we raise our hand if someone has something to say? He's like, I'm not feeling so good. He's like, suck it up. And then he throws up, and they're like, and then Orlando Jones throws up. And then it's like,
I can't be around people throwing up.
And then you have the deaf tight end, and he's like, I'm about to throw up. And he's like, all right.
Who's not deaf.
Everyone,
we point this out, not deaf.
Not deaf in real life, but he did know sign language. Like
yes, he did.
Like he was actually saying real stuff. He wasn't just miming it. Like he was actually saying
Roy from The Office.
Yep, Roy from The Office.
Interesting. Yeah, had no idea he was in anything besides The Office. Turns out he's been in a bunch of shit besides The Office. So I looked him up.
Yeah,
there we go.
And
that was funny though.
Yeah, let's move 5 feet to the left. And they did in the huddle, and they're like,
dude, it's the Jimmy MC Hammer step that kills me. They literally tap dance themselves in like a semi-wide shot, and they show them all moving. It's hilarious.
And then the coach is like, what are we doing? He's like, look at it this way. It's the first thing they've done together on the football field.
Dude, you want to talk about Adam Sandler's legal team? Dude, John Madden is comic gold in this movie up in the commentator booth. And then I realized they just got the ESPN guys to do that same shtick in The Waterboy. Like, it just occurred to me right now. And that's some of the funniest shit in The Waterboy. It's like they won because they didn't hold anything back. Oh, the Mud Dogs are really going to have to turn it on here. Whoa. Like, it's just that we'll get to that. That's coming, guys. Don't worry.
That was Dan Phelps in that one. It was John Madden and Pat Summerall on this one.
Yeah.
I love it when a fat guy scores.
I was just going to mention that. My favorite scene is when the ball gets popped up and Yumiko comes down with it. And he's like, oh, shit. And all that dude does is wrap it up and go. And I love that scene because I remember there was a Patriots playoff game forever ago where that happened to Big Vince Wilfork. Ball went up, came down. He started on his own 20 or something. And my man just chugged. And nobody can fucking stop him. Dude, they say he's still running. He's almost in the end zone at the other end of the field. He's almost there. It's been 12 years. But there's nothing better than watching a big guy get a moment. I love that. That shit happened in The Replacements, and I was like, yeah.
And John Madden's like, I love it when a big guy scores. And Pat Summerall's like, really? He's like, yeah, because he did a big guy spike and a big guy dance.
It's just everything about both of these movies, right? I mean, The Replacements and Remember the Titans, because the time frame there. When Remember the Titans isn't doing the race relations heavy stuff, everything else is pretty fun. Like the interactions between all the players are pretty fun. You know what I mean? And The Replacements reminded me of a couple of other movies that it cribbed from, things like Major League. You know what I mean? Where it's
Yeah.
just an ensemble cast of lovable losers. They have to get their shit together. They don't take it seriously. But then somebody insults their pride or insults the one guy they all like. And they're like, all right, then here we go. And then all bets are off. And Charlie Sheen does his wild thing.
Yeah, it's like they're still in training camp or their practice, and they're having lunch, and he sits down with the felon, and he's like, allegedly, because he's just like,
Yep.
you would have been all pro if you didn't stab those guys, and he takes
Did not assault those cops. Yeah,
he's like, allegedly. What I hear is like, my man didn't do anything. He's like, I heard the cops. He's like, I wish the cop was here. I'd mess him up. And then he looks at John Favreau and goes, what do you do? I'm a cop. Ooh, one cake.
but that's exactly the same scenes that like Remember the Titans runs with the people that were like diametrically opposed to each other resolving and becoming the good friends by the end, because John Favreau and I can't remember that character's name, the convict, like they have a handshake at the end of the movie where he's like, take care of yourself. You know what I mean? But there's no messaging here. That there wasn't any preaching things with it.
No,
they just had fun
funny.
with what they were doing, right? Gene Hackman calls his boss an animal at one point when the billionaire tells him, hey, we're gonna go back with the pro cross back over, Falco's out.
Yeah.
I think if the replacements had a weak spot for me, I'm just gonna put on like my film critic hat for a minute here. No pun intended, I got a hat. The love connection thing. It was undercooked for me. Like, I get why it was in the movie, because that relationship is in every Adam Sandler rom-com drama ever. Like the attractive chick that gets tangentially attached to the story. And she's no Vicky Valancourt, don't get me wrong. But they undercooked what the meaning of like how, like when he had to stand her up, it was because the pro quarterback said she deserves better than you. Did she used to date the pro quarterback? Like, was that a real reason for Keanu Reeves to take his word at such a deep level and then ditch her on a date? Like,
I think
don't know.
It had more to do with his self-doubt, because I mean,
oh sure, that's what they were going for.
He
100%.
was scraping barnacles off of people's $1,000 or $1 billion yachts.
Self-employed, owned his own business,
and he lived on a houseboat, which is pretty cool.
Pretty beat up houseboat though. I mean, I think the only crappier living on a boat situation I've ever seen is Riggs in Lethal Weapon 1.
Yeah,
I mean, at least Keanu's boat was on the water.
Yeah,
Riggs was on the water. But then again, Riggs could say beachfront. Technically, also a Christmas movie. Technically, Lethal Weapon it does take place at Christmas time.
The very first.
Side note for December movies on FrostCast. Put a pin in that. But no, the Replacements was good fun. I like that the movie doesn't end with them magically winning the Super Bowl or some bullshit like that. That's too much. It was a rocky story. They wanted to go the distance together, and the distance was winning all the games to get to the playoffs. Shane Falco, of course, gets the comeback at halftime, and the Mud Dogs win the Bourbon Bowl in this movie,
which was just the last game of the regular season.
Which was the last game, but for those guys, it was the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like that was their moment to be together and do the thing. I do like everything that happened with the pro team flipping over Keanu Reeves' truck like 3 times and you get that coalescing moment where when Keanu's team finally comes together, they see him getting picked on and his car getting flipped, and the 2 guards come over like, whoa. I need you to flip my man's truck back over. And they're like, oh yeah, why? And one dude's like, hey Brad, is that your Porsche over there? And dude, out comes the 9. Clack, clack, clack.
Yeah.
Pops it up a little bit.
You crazy? And it uses the F word. He's like, crazy. And he shoots the rear view out. Flip it back over. He's like, stop messing with our man. Stop messing with his ride. He's like,
he's also like, get it washed too. Get it washed.
Quarterback. He's like, yeah, wash it. Just put a little wax on
wax. I love the fact, right? Because again, this is one of the things we were talking about when we were setting the show up before. In 2024, we can't get that scene. And it's fucking hysterical, and we can't get it because it's got a gun, number one, right? And it's got a black guy using a gun in a semi-stereotypical ghetto-ish way. I'll leave it at that. I'm like, no, that's funny. It's really funny, and I guarantee that 97% of people that saw this in theater laughed their asses off when it happened. Because it's funny shit, because he's just nonchalant, out the coat, doesn't look, and just fires a few rounds.
Yeah.
What I love, and the other thing, it can't happen today, is because folks, and I admit I do this a lot, when it counts on things like the Acolyte when they have fire in space and fire burning stone buildings. I had to do it. That whole scene goes down in broad daylight with like 1,000 witnesses and like this dude's around for the rest of the movie. Yeah. And I'm like, reckless endangerment, unlawful discharge of a firearm, felony weapons charges, things like that.
It's Washington, D.C.
Comedy, what?
It's comedy, Wolf. In 2000, there's always a
murder capital of the world, right? Yeah, you gotta let that shit. It's a comedy. You gotta let all that shit slide going in. You know what I mean? But I thought that was some funny shit.
Yeah, one of the other points I'll bring is even though it's a comedy, it does have some solid moments, which is the scene right after that. Which we always talk about set up and payoff. First,
I'm a big fan.
At the end of that scene, like you saw Falco did a ride from the cheerleader, and she put some stuff on his arm because he's like, oh, it looks worse than it feels. It looks like hell. Well, then it looks exactly how it feels. And she put some wild yam stuff on it. And they're walking to practice. He's like, what's that smell? He's like, yeah. I was like, that's nice.
But again, dude, it's not technically a sight gag. It really is just it's just a joke. Like they just wrote something in. It's funny, and it doesn't need to be like side splitting, but you get that chuckle because it's funny. I'll say this: I'll one up, and I won't one up you. I'll double down on those kind of things. The ride she gives him home almost kills him. Yeah. Like this woman is a nut behind the wheel of her Jeep in like traffic, weaving in and out of like whatever it was. I don't know if it's the Beltway down there in DC. I'm not too well traveled down that area. Like, but she's like in and out, and like when she pulls up in front of the boat. Like the Jeep stops and he almost goes through the windshield, like because she just like jams it and he's all like, "Thanks for the lift." I'm like, dude, that's just funny. And I feel like today, if we shoot that scene, they're just driving 10 and 2. They're driving around DC hand over hand to make the turns, and they're just doing the feelings in the hallway, feelings in the Jeep, feelings at the kitchen table thing. They did all that, but it was visually funny because every 5th second, Keanu Reeves was like dodging cars and shit, right?
So we go into practice, and then they have the other payoff that if you have a firearm, we're not saying that you have to turn it in. Just do not use it again.
We're gonna need you to turn it over. Yeah. Again, funny because I think that like that was voiceover. I think I don't think it wasn't a character announcing. I think we heard that as a voiceover as they were entering the building, right? No, it was the coach talking in front of everybody while they're in a meeting. Oh, okay.
It was a voice off screen, but it wasn't like an announcement. It was like a coach actually there talking to them.
Okay, that's what I meant. I'm like, but it's funny because it doesn't have to be something as stickler as I think we would get today, where it would just be Gene Hackman at the front of the room at the meeting room, like reading off the clipboard. We have an announcement from the organization, not no guns. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, no, it's funny. Like we're walking into the building and we're getting prepped for more comedy, so it worked.
But then you get moved into the serious scene where they're like, let's talk about fears. And everyone has like bees, and they had that whole funny part with bees and spiders.
Does anyone have a fear that isn't bugs?
Yeah. And then Shane Falco comes in like quicksand. And then you have Orlando like, yeah, quicksand. So he's like, he goes, I don't think that's what you mean. He's like, what you talking about, Shane? And he's like, so you're in a game and you make a mistake. And then you try harder, and then you make another one, and then another one. And then the harder you struggle, the deeper you sink.
Deeper you sink. Yep.
And then everyone else like going back to the shipping yards, going back to prison.
Yep. But again, this is that kind of quintessential writing we're always talking about. It started as a joke.
Yeah.
It was a misunderstanding, a joke, haha, funny. And then, you know what I mean? It phases into something else that becomes that. That's not the Dark Night of the Soul in the movie. The Dark Night of the Soul is when Shane loses his job. You know what I mean?
And he cleans out his locker.
Right. This is that pivotal scene in Act 2. I don't think it was the midpoint. I think it was nearer Act 3. It was getting towards Act 3, right? It was like the fun point. Was it?
It was right after the first game.
Oh, so yeah, it would have been about the midpoint. Okay, that's what I mean. Structurally, these are the things we're always talking about because it lets me know what's coming next. It lets me know that, like, okay, this is the scene that they're either going to come together or they're going to fall apart. This team comes together, and then they have their path to victory after this scene. This team, even though they had bonded some without something clear cut to unite them like that, probably doesn't end up the same way. I mean, it's fiction. It could end up however the writers want, but like, if they want me to take it seriously, it has to follow a semi-predictable kind of train.
That scene, if you take it back to Remember the Titans, was that night practice where Burtier jumps up and he jumps all over the offensive lineman from not blocking right. And then Campbell lays a hit on Petey.
Oh, dude. Smoked him.
And it's like
smoked him.
It started bringing the whole team together. That's when they do the whole left side, strong side chant.
Left side, strong side.
And this is that moment for them where they kind of come together because they all know that they're playing with fear because this is their one shot to actually be professional football players again. Yep. And they're like, now that we've talked about fears, let's work through those and put that fear into, I forgot who they were playing next. Oh, I think it was
Dallas. It's probably
no, Dallas was the last game. Dallas was the last game.
That was the last time they were any good.
It was Detroit. It was Detroit. They played Detroit next. Yep. That was their first win. Because they were talking about that they brought a whole semi-pro, they hired a whole semi-pro football team.
Oh, that's right. Yep. Yeah, I think that again, the only like structurally in the movie, I wanted if the love interest thing was better, it was better cooked. It needed more from the antagonist, the pro quarterback being more of a dick more often, I think, or at least part of that needed to be that they had dated at one point, as to make that connection strong. But otherwise, damn fine movie, damn fine. So we're gonna move on to another damn fine movie. Amma says it's time, and we got one more movie to do, so we gotta be efficient here. We gotta talk about The Waterboy. I mean, Adam Sandler's got like 57 football movies, I guess, but I think it's mostly just 2.
He loves football.
I love football. I love it. This is that Adam Sandler movie for me. Everybody's got their favorites. Any of the old school Sandler stuff is gold, in my opinion. I don't care what anybody says. I enjoy the crude humor. There's a lot of heart behind most of these movies in the end of, especially as he got into that golden era around The Waterboy and Deeds and Big Daddy. There was a lot of heart that was involved once he moved out of the Gilmore and Billy Madison early days, like the right
away from his SNL characters.
Right, that's what I'm saying. He turned it. Some of these ended up being really good. The Waterboy is one of my favorites. It's eminently quotable. Like, these lines come up at every single football game I ever go to. Anybody's house we pop by, somebody's quoting it at some point. I got a wooden spoon. Like, people just randomly throw that out there, and it's always funny.
How do you always find yourself in the right spot? Well, they hike the ball, and then they hand the ball off, and I try to tackle him. And then if he gives the ball to someone else, then I try to tackle him. That's how I do it. And he's like, which brings me to my next point. Don't do crap.
Don't do crap. That's the LT way. And all the boys just like, they just give him the nod. Dude, love this movie. Another banger cast. You got the Fonz as the coach. Love him. I love Fairuza
He's
Balk.
a lot of like Adam Sandler movies as well.
Yep. He's on the crew. Henry Winkler. Kathy Bates, brilliant as Mama. Brilliant. Yeah. Who else is in this piece? A lot of his mainstays.
Yeah, his personal assistant is the cross-eyed linebacker.
Yep.
One of his buddies is who was in Grandma's Boy was the quarterback.
And sweet Robbie Schneider. You can do it.
Yep, Rob Schneider. And then the Cajun coach. We will find another day.
Dude, I love that guy. He's another one of Sandler's guys. He's in 50 First Dates and a couple of other movies too, I think.
He's one of Sandler's guys.
He's Kyoto. I love that when he first blows up one of the mud dogs in practice. That's what he felt. I'm like, that's funny. That's funny to the point where I've seen other people use that in other genres when somebody gets blown up. You know what I mean? If somebody gets like knocked out, like my brother, like randomly, my brothers would say that if we were watching like an MMA event, if somebody goes down hard, one of them just be like, "It's Kyoto," and everybody knows what you're talking about. Everybody understands the Captain Insano. Everybody gets
Captain Insano shows no mercy.
Shows no mercy. We got power bombs on the football field. We got cheerleaders drinking full bottles of bourbon on whiskey on the sideline and passing out. Then we got Fairuza Balk, probably the funniest thing she's been in ever. When he's taking the test at the end, she's like knocking on the glass, and she holds up the sign that says "Want me to kill them?" Talking about the educators that were going to do the test. Where he's just like, "I love that. The favorite scene, right? When he finally snaps on his mom, and he goes, "I like Veronica. I like Vicky, and she likes me back. She showed me her boobies, and I love them too." I'm like, that's funny. That's gold. It's just gold, man. There's nothing not funny about this flick.
Or when
Nothing at all.
they're at dinner and she made snake. He's like, "What part are you eating?" He goes, "Well, a snake really doesn't have parts, but if I had to say, I would say his knee."
It's the knee. And it's got a giant ass boa coiled on the table with an apple in its mouth. But dude, that's what I mean. This movie is all sight gags because as the coach is leaving, he goes, "You know, my mom told me not to get a tattoo of Roy Orbison." He gets to the door and he drops his pants. It's like, but Mama don't know won't hurt. He got a tattoo of Roy Orbison on his ass. Like, that's just funny. Like, dude, when was the last time? What was the last movie that had gags like that? I struggle. Like, I don't remember the last time I saw a movie that made me laugh out loud like that, like on that level. Like Dodgeball, that shit's 15 years old.
Yeah.
Like the Will Ferrell stuff is 15 years old now. You know, Hangover, get 10 years at least, 15 probably. I think that was like 09, I think. Yeah. It's like we can't get away with this stuff anymore because somebody would find something about any of it. I don't know how in The Waterboy. I mean, maybe because they say you can't portray people with special needs. I'm like, no, he's just dumb. He doesn't have any special needs. He's just dumb.
He's backward.
He's not even dumb. He's simple. You know, I love the coach on the opposing team clutching the green notebook and he shrinks his head down into baby style so he can not be intimidated. It's funny. There's so much funny shit in this movie. But again, it has that element of heart with it, you know, where he's like, he's going to quit on the team because Mama's faking she's in a coma. He doesn't know that. And the team gets destroyed in the first half of the championship game. And then he does the replacement thing. Yeah. It's because if I was there, I'd have brought her the water. Like, then we get the whole spiel with his daddy. He died of the dehydration. Like, that's funny.
Hydration, coach.
I was just a little baby in Mama's stomach.
I would have brought him the water, but I was a little baby.
I love when he shows up at the end and Mama lays a hit on him as they're coming out the wedding. That shit's hysterical. Seeing Kathy Bates, like Rhino, charge this dude and put him down. Oh God, it's funny. There's too many funny moments to talk about it, but it's like,
that's why I call some high quality H2O.
H2O. Dude, I love and he has a procedure. I love this shit too. Because we first see it, we see the high quality H2O for real when the coach goes down. He's having his little panic attack when they meet. He throws the coat back, and in a holster, he's got the flask with the medicine water from the Eskimo that blessed the water.
No. He just has a water tub. He just has a water tub. He doesn't have the Eskimo.
That wasn't the special. Oh, that's right. The special water comes up at the end because he showed Vicky that. Yeah, that's right. But it's still, he's got the 8-ounce bottle of Dasani or whatever on the belt. Yeah. And then the collapsible company flips it out. It's good shit. It's funny.
As long as you do not serve your players the contents of that bucket.
I'll work for free. I like when he's driving the tractor around the interstate, around the rotary and shit, and like cars laying on the horn. And then Vicky soups it up. I hope you enjoy what I did to your tractor. Rocket shot. Dude, too many, like, you could literally watch the whole movie and pause it like every scene, get the laugh, to talk about the laugh and why it was a great joke, and then move on because there's nothing not funny. Like all the stuff in the college with Colonel Sanders. Funny. It's all funny there. It's all set up and then boom, punchline.
No, you wrong, Colonel Sanders. Mama's right. He has a problem.
Something's wrong with his. Something's wrong with it. So good shit. Oh, that's some good shit. And then that poor guy gets trampled at the end when the Mud Dogs win. Yeah. That's awesome. He's running down the stands and he just goes down hard.
He's actually in another Adam Sandler movie too. He's in The Longest Yard as well.
Oh, he's the warden's advisor.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Political advisor.
He's also in Mr. Deeds, I believe. Isn't he the opera singing guy at the table? I think I shot myself. I think that's him. If I'm going off the I haven't seen that movie in forever.
We could probably do a whole episode on just Adam Sandler movies.
We probably should. We pencil that in for January because there's a bunch of good ones. We could even throw in some of the crappy ones just to offset. Jack and Jill 2, anybody?
Two of his more serious ones are actually some of my favorites.
The 9/11 one.
Yep.
That Rain on Me.
Rain on Me and Hustle.
I was just gonna say, let me guess. Haven't seen either of those. Maybe we should cover these movies. That might be the play.
Hustle is really good. I think you would enjoy it. Like, you know how much we were into basketball growing up.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, and Sandler's a fan because he incorporates basketball in any movie he can get that into.
Yeah,
like grown-ups. We need to do 8 Crazy Nights. That needs to happen. We don't do enough animated shit on this channel. We need to talk about 8 Crazy Nights because that shit's funny. I will do a live performance of every song on there. I'll do it. We'll karaoke this shit right up.
I have to
love that
see that
movie.
again. I've only ever seen that movie once.
Oh, dude, come on. You're killing me, Smalls. Come on. Dude,
You
when
didn't watch
Whitey does
Remember the
his
Titans.
song,
I did a
I know.
pass.
You probably, dude, you get 5 passes for being really fair. It's Remember the Titans versus 8 Crazy Nights. It's, it balances at some point, but it's not a 1-to-1. I'll give you that. But again, it's one of those movies. I think it's a perfect Sandler-ism. It's got all the crude humor, but there's a story. There's heart underneath it. It's a kid that lost his parents and kind of lost his joy, lost his faith, and gets it all back. You know what I mean? Near the end when he does the right thing. Like again, like the sports stuff, sucker for that. The dad and son stuff, sucker for that. Character finding their faith again, sucker for that. I don't care. Whatever. Sue me, people. Give a fuck. But yeah. So we gave you guys our talk on our 4 favorite football movies. We just literally live planned our next 6 episodes also. So we've got a lot of stuff done tonight in the hour. So, we probably should have set up front, and I need to get better about this. Let us know what your what your favorite movies would have been. What should we have mentioned in a favorite football movies if we were going to do like an episode 2 on the topic? Because like King Z said, we came up with 4 off the top of our heads that we forgot about until we just had this talk today.
Yeah.
So there's definitely room to go on this topic, but I think I'll say happy Thanksgiving to everybody again, and we will see you guys next week on FrostCast. That's Wednesdays. We will see you also, if you're good doobies, on Tuesdays, because we're doing Dune Prophecy. Episode 2 is setting up some big stuff for episode 3, so please check that out as well. And happy Thanksgiving, guys. And to King Z.
I say, we'll see ya.
Bye.